Welcome, everybody. My name is Odie Monde, the manager of nonprofit services at the Community Foundation of Sarasota County. Thank you for joining us this morning for the Communications and Storytelling Strategies training session brought to us from KSC Inc. We have Melanie and Aaron with us this morning. I, as well as Erica Kelly, who's our consultant for the 2024 Giving Challenge, are here to watch and monitor the chat if you have any questions that come in. Aaron and Melanie will also provide multiple stopping points throughout their presentation if you have questions to ask during the presentation. This meeting is recorded and they gave us the presentation that we can share with you all after the fact, and you can rewatch this as many times as you need to. We do have 54 days until the 2024 Giving Challenge. So we hope that the tools that you'll learn in today's presentation, as well as the recordings from past presentations, you all are using those and implementing them in your campaigns leading up to April 9th and 10th. Crazy how soon that's coming. But we do have a couple more trainings coming up. We do have the final steps to success in March 5th from 10 to 11 a.m. That'll be with our partners at GiveGab, who will share just some last minute tips and tools that you can use through the platform before the actual day of the challenge. And then Eric and myself will be available for a virtual open house March 7th if you have any last minute questions to ask us about the challenge. And either sometime today, we'll probably be sending another email out to team leads, pop-up giving stations. If you are planning to host one, you can now apply and be an official pop-up giving station with us, and will be appearing on the website in March, so you can start applying now so that we can help with the promotion of that. And I just want to launch a poll so that we know who's in the room. Please let us know how many giving challenges you have participated in and how many challenges your organization has participated in, just so we can get an idea of who we're working with here today. But as you guys complete that, I will introduce our speakers. So Erin Hoffer joined the team at KSC in November 2018 as an account executive. Prior to this, she spent more than 11 years with Sarasota County's largest city, the city of Northport, as a professional government communicator, in which she led many marketing, media relations, public relations, and advertising initiatives. She graduated from University of Florida with a bachelor's degree in journalism, communications, and a master's in communications with a specialization in social media in 2016. Erin has earned her accreditation in public relations from the Universal Accreditation Board and is recognized as a certified public relations counselor. Melanie Rita joined KSC Inc. in 2020. Having worked in agencies and corporate marketing departments for more than 25 years, Melanie has experience in all aspects of marketing, communications, and public relations. Her resume includes employers and clients in financial services, commercial insurance, retail, publishing, software development, medical management, and more. She has earned her accreditation in public relations from the Universal Accreditation Board and is recognized as a certified public relations counselor. So I will pass the mic over to them and I will share our poll results.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Odie, for introducing us. We are absolutely thrilled to be here today to present to all of you. And we're watching the results as they come in, and it's nice to see there's people from all over, from first timers all the way up to people who've been doing this for eight consecutive giving challenges, which is really exciting. So I'm going to try and switch. There we go. All right. So as Melanie and I start this, we wanted to just make sure you knew that it's going to be okay. We're about to throw a bunch of information at you. And our goal today is to really go over 7 steps to building a strategic communications plan. There's a lot to these steps, but hopefully just being 7 steps, it's not too overwhelming. The goal, these 7 steps, the strategic communications plan is actually scalable. So you can use these same 7 steps for something incredibly small. So if for the Giving Challenge you're planning on a special event, you can, like a kickoff event or something of that nature, you can use these 7 steps to build a communications plan just on that specific event. Or you can use these same 7 steps for your entire campaign for the Giving Challenge, integrated into with all of the different channels that you intend to use. These 7 steps can also go outside of the Giving Challenge and help you in future marketing and communications for your organization. They can also be used even holistically, organization-wide, for a strategic communications plan for your entire organization. So we often talk about how communications is both an art and a science. And today we're really going to talk about the science with the art and how they really merge and fit in. But it's okay. There's only 7 steps and we're going to get you there. So Mel, I can't hear you.
Sorry. How about now?
All right, there you are.
Good morning. I'm Melanie, and I'm excited to be with you this morning too. As Erin mentioned, we're going to give you 7 steps today, and those 7 steps are going to help us accomplish 3 goals during this training. First, we're going to provide you with a step-by-step framework for developing your own communication plan. So when we get done today, you should have the outline of what you need to put your plan together. And if this is your first Giving Challenge, hopefully it'll make you feel comfortable with a strategic plan moving forward. And if you've done this many times before, I hope we'll at least give you a couple new ideas to think about. Our goal is to position you for success through clear focus on your goals and objectives. And we're really going to dive into goals and objectives and what those are and how to determine good goals and objectives for your strategic plan. And we'll demystify the communication process and the strategy behind it. And if we don't, I hope you'll ask us questions along the way to make sure we do.
So just to go over as a recap, although I'm hoping that everyone on this call is aware, the 2024 Giving Challenge is coming fast. It'll be here soon. And this is truly a launching point for your communications plan for the 2024 Giving Challenge. Although, as I discussed, this can be used for almost anything that you do when it comes to spreading the news about your activities, programs, and services. The Giving Challenge, 2024 Giving Challenge, is 24 hours. It will start at noon on April 9th and conclude on noon April 10th. This is an opportunity for your organization to cultivate relationships with all of your stakeholders, from your donors to your volunteers to your employees, and then also foster some community-wide buzz, maybe even raise some awareness about your services and what it is that you do, as well as encourage new and past donors. And this is certainly a growth opportunity for your association as well. So the 2024 Giving Challenge is coming soon.
All right, step 1 is to define your goal. What does your finish line look like? You have to know where you're going in order to make a plan to get there. Typically for something like the Giving Challenge, your goal is probably going to be a dollar amount of donations you're hoping to bring in, although that may not be your only goal. But to make sure you're prepared to set goals for this and any other communication challenge, we're going to dig in a little bit more to how to set a good goal. So goals are broad future states of being. You need to know where you are now and have an idea what you want to accomplish. So like we said with the Giving Challenge, it may be a dollar amount, but it's also really important to make sure the goal you set support your organization's mission. And that sounds really obvious, but I think we all know it's sometimes easy to get sidetracked or go off on a side quest. And you may find yourself sometimes working on a project that may not move the needle for your organization. So when you set your goal, it needs to be something that supports your goals, your organization's mission, and will make a difference for your organization. For communication projects, there are some common goals. They may be to increase engagement, maybe to increase attendance at one of your events, For something like this, increasing donors or donations is a common goal. Increasing awareness. If you're a newer organization or you're offering newer services, or maybe you're offering your services to a different audience than you have in the past, you may just want to get the word out about that. And then there's increasing membership. If you're a membership-based association, or even if you have programs that you want people to come back to year over year, like the Giving Challenge, every 2 years, you want to make sure your donors come back. You may want to look at membership or creating a sense of inclusivity with your goals. So the achievement of goals is supported by measurable objectives. Like we said, your goal is a broad state of being. The objectives are where we're going to get really specific about how to achieve those goals, and we're going to dive into that. But determining what those objectives are starts with really good research, and Erin's going to tell us more about research.
So I can't stress enough the importance of research when it comes to developing a strategic communications plan. And notice I use the word strategic communications plan because it's really the research that makes it truly strategic. Your research will tell you all sorts of things that are happening both in the environment, within your organization, what your competitors are doing, and it helps you fine-tune. As Melanie said, you'll talk about the objectives and your measurable objectives, and we'll get to strategies and tactics so that you know that you're on the right path. Too often we can get really highly creative and just say, well, we want to do this and this and this and this and this. And sometimes we spend so much time and resources doing all of these things, but we don't really know whether or not those things are effective or if they're the right strategies to really be doing. And that's a lot of time and a lot of resources. And we know that most of us don't have a lot of time or resources. We're working on thin budgets. And so being able to be more strategic is key. So research, again, is the foundation of any strategy. It also establishes a baseline. It tells you where your organization is at that current time. And then perhaps after that campaign that you've run, perhaps you can then look at the research again to see if you've moved that needle. And so again, it establishes that baseline. It tells you where you are. And as I just mentioned, it can help save you time and money by making sure that you're on the right path and doing the right things. So environmental research is really what's happening in your community. What's happening right now in Southwest Florida, in Sarasota, Manatee, Charlotte, DeSoto, what's going on, what's happening in the economy, what's the newest headlines, understanding where you are in the environment and how what's happening in the economy, how is that affecting your organization? Also, what's happening within your organization. So what is the current state of your organization? How many volunteers have you pulled in? And what are your employees? What's the culture within your employees? You may want to look at past donations and donors and how many donors you have in the past. Maybe look at some past practices. It can certainly give you some current look at what's going on in your organization. And then also a look at what your competitors are doing. Well, what are they doing for the Giving Challenge? Or what did they do 2 years ago for the Giving Challenge? What are they doing now in the community? And what are you doing in relation to that as well? So just understanding what's happening around you. Once again, research shows us where we are in the world so that we can chart our course. So there's different types of research that you can do. There's primary and secondary, and then there's formal and informal. Primary is exactly what it sounds like. It's conducted by yourself. So if your organization wants to launch its own surveys or its own focus groups, or perhaps you want to take a deep dive into who gave during the last Giving Challenge to your association and what times they gave, all that information, that would be information that you would be looking up yourself. So it would be considered primary. Secondary information is typically done by someone else other than yourself. So studies that are out there about the current state of the economy, the current state of the environment. Perhaps there's research out there on how the different generations of people get their news. We know that the Pew Research Center has some great information if you did a Google search on that to find out the different generations. And are they going to television? Are they going to the websites? Are they going to social media? How are they getting their news? So that's something that's an example of secondary research. So primary and secondary, and then you have formal and informal. Formal research is typically statistically sound. It's a little bit more expensive to do formal research. Formal research is really looking at, typically people hire research firms to do formal research that are specialized in that. They will do a cross-section of your audience, send out and do phone calls or some sort of mixed channels to get that formal research back. And when you get that information, you know that it's statistically sound and is a true look at what's going on for your audience, in your audience, what the public sentiment or opinion is. You see formal research in a lot of government. So I know Sarasota County had done this as a government. I know the city of Northport has done this. It's very possible that Sarasota and Venice and some of the other cities in our region have done that as well, where they hire a professional firm to go out and do a citizen survey or a customer satisfaction survey, where then they find out, are people satisfied with their fire service? Are people satisfied with their water and sewer services? And it gives them important feedback on moving forward. And so that's formal research. Informal research is most of the research that is out there that is done just by everybody. We do a lot of informal research, like taking and doing a survey that we just did on using this platform on Zoom to find out how many of you have, how much experience you have with Giving Challenge. That's an example of informal. Informal is doing a survey on SurveyMonkey or hosting a focus group. So lots of different types of informal research that you might find out there. It might be informal versus formal. So there's primary and secondary, formal and informal types of research. One possible type of research you could do yourself as a primary type of research is a communications audit. This is a lot of fun. You lay out all of your information material on a table, all of your brochures, your flyers, perhaps any advertisements that you've done, put a laptop up, look at your website, look for common themes and messages, look for things that you like and dislike. Ask yourself if the messages speak to the mission and vision. This can help you a lot in developing and honing your key messages of what you specifically would like to state during your communications plan for the Giving Challenge, what you'd like to broadcast out there. And we'll talk about key messages a little later. But having a communications audit is another way of looking at where you are in the world so that you can chart your course. So this is another activity idea in addition to a communications audit. We'll give these activity ideas throughout the presentation, but this is one where you can do with your own team. So you can pull together a group of people within your organization. This can be easily done with the board of directors, or it could be done with just certain people throughout your organization, maybe staff, maybe some volunteers, maybe 4 or 5 people, getting them together and running a SWOT analysis. Some of you may have heard this be called a SWOT analysis with a T. We like to call it a SWOT with a C, where you're gaining your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges instead of your threats, because we feel like challenges is a little more positive. But you basically just brainstorm, what are your strengths? And brainstorm, what are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities? And then what are those challenges? And you'd be surprised with some of the great ideas that'll come out of that for you and your organization. So before we go to step 3, maybe it's time to ask Odie if there's any questions so far.
So far, not in the chat, but we did have someone comment that they once wrote a grant to conduct a communications grant and hired a consulting agency that did a communications audit that was really revealing and eye-opening. So
That's
It
fantastic.
can be, yeah. Sometimes you've done so many communications that you forget to take a step back and look at them as a whole, and a communications audit can be really interesting. Okay, so step 3, now we're getting to setting our objectives. So once you know what your goal is and you've done the research so you understand the background and the current situation and what's been done in the past, and that hopefully will give you an eye to what is possible moving forward and help you set your objectives. Objectives are going to help you create a basis for evaluation. So evaluation is going to happen all throughout your project. So whether it's the Giving Challenge or anything else, you don't want to wait until the end to evaluate success. You're looking at how your plan is working before, during, and after, and your objectives are going to help you have something to judge that success against. I'm sure you have all heard of SMART objectives before. So to be SMART, an objective has to have the 5 elements. It needs to be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And we'll get into each one a little more. Specific and relevant, these speak to who you are and who your audience is. So you need to know what you want to accomplish, and you want to be very specific about what you're trying to accomplish. That needs to be measurable, truly quantifiably measurable, so you can tell how much you moved the needle at the end of the project. And time-based, with the Giving Challenge, the time frame is built right in. So you have the 24-hour period of the actual Giving Challenge. Of course, your communication is going to start well before that, but you will be judging your results at the end of that challenge, so you know what your time base is and your end there. If you happen to have a project that is not as time-bound as the Giving Challenge, you may want to set interim time periods in it. So say something might last over a 3-year period. You don't want to wait until the end of 3 years to judge whether you're meeting your objectives and working towards your goal or not. So you might want to set in quarterly or biannual or yearly objectives along the way. Generally, your objective is going to include a level of behavior or opinion change that you want to accomplish. So this might just be awareness. Again, if you're trying to get the word out about certain things that you offer or about your organization in general, it might be an awareness objective. You may be trying to change people's attitude or take an action. In the case of the Giving Challenge, you want people to make a donation. So that's an action that will be part of your objective. And of course, the public's affected. This is your audience. And Erin's going to dig deeper into audience in a little bit too, but you want to know who you're speaking to, and that needs to be reflected in your objective as well. So there are 3 general types of objectives. The most important type of objective for meeting your goals is an outcome objective. Outcome objectives are about the change in behavior, opinion, support, or action, like making that donation that you want to have happen. And these objectives require high-level strategic thinking. So you're probably going to have more than one objective for your communication plan, because you're going to break that overall goal into small, manageable bites. Process objectives are about informing or educating. And this may be something that you want to do, but these are much harder to measure. So one way to do that would be to conduct a survey at the beginning of a project and find out, how much awareness people have about a certain topic. Do they know your organization exists? Do they know your services are there? And then repeating that same survey to the same audience after your communication effort is done. But those are harder to do, and generally process objectives don't produce measurable results or the type of action results that may get you to like a donation goal. And then there are output objectives. Output objectives are about really your own work. So you might measure the activities or outputs you want to do. So during the Giving Challenge, that might be that you want to do 8 social media posts during the 24 hours, or you want to send 4 emails during the 24 hours. That's a goal, that's an objective for yourself for how much work you're going to produce in that time period. And it helps you monitor your work and whether you've done that. But again, it really has no value in measuring the effectiveness of the campaign. So just sending those emails out isn't going to help you determine whether your audience is taking an action or doing what you're hoping to accomplish. Okay, so you hit your mark when objectives take a targeted approach. And again, this is the SMART objective, and we're going to break it down even further by looking at a good example of an objective and how those elements are represented. So here's an example of a good objective for the Giving Challenge. During the 2024 Giving Challenge, we want to increase the first-time donors by 5%, which is 25 more donors over the total first-time donors during the 2022 Giving Challenge. So rather than looking at a dollar amount or the total number of donors, this is very specific to first-time donors. So that's your purple is the first-time donors. The time-based and relevant is the 2024 Giving Challenge. So we're specifically narrowing this communication effort down to this Giving Challenge campaign. And we know what the time frame is for that. So the measurable piece is the increase by 5%. So you want to increase your first-time donors by 5%. And we're assuming there were 500 based on the math here. There were 500 donors last year for your organization. So an increase of 5% would get you to 525 donors this year, and that feels attainable. So in order to determine what's an attainable objective for your organization, you need to have done that research. You need to know that last year you had 500 first-time donors, and this year you feel like 525 is a reasonable goal for your organization. It's okay to set stretch goals. It's okay to set something you really want to work hard for and may be difficult to achieve, but you think you can do it. Saying you wanted to get 500 new donors this year might be really, really tough. So the 5% is an attainable goal. And of course, it's measurable. This is a quantifiable number goal that you can look back on and really know that you achieved or didn't achieve. So your activity idea around SMART objectives is to work with your team and create an objective that has all of those elements of the SMART objective: the specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Any questions on objectives before we move on to the next step? All right.
I think Odie's shaking her head no.
Actually, one just came in.
Oh,
One
all right.
asked, how many SMART objectives would we want to do, or how many would you recommend someone create?
That's a great question, but it's hard to answer. So it really depends on what your goal is. If your goal is a certain dollar figure for the Giving Challenge, you might have a goal like we just looked at that was more first-time donors because you want to reach people that you haven't reached ever before. You might have a goal for returning donors as well. You might have a goal, an objective to a certain number of donors from a select audience. So it really depends on what your overall goal is and how you can break that down into objectives that will help you achieve that.
Yeah. And then do you have any recommendations for a complete first-time nonprofit who's never done a Giving Challenge before? Like, what SMART goal could they have?
Sure. I think in determining what your overall goal would be, you might want to look at what other organizations of your size have been able to do in the past. So if you're really going into this with no idea of what might be an attainable overall goal for your organization. You can look at other organizations of your size or industry and what they've done. You might look at past fundraising campaigns that your organization has done and see how this might be different or how this might fit in to one of those. And the first time around, one of the things we're going to talk about at the end with evaluation is that your evaluation should leave you with lessons learned for next time. So if it's your first time, this really may be, it's going to be a learning process as you go through. So you just do the best you can with the research that you've done and the information that you can find to set a goal that you think is attainable and then adjust as you need to.
Perfect, thank you. And speaking on that, I do want to say there is a great report on performances from 2022 Giving Challenge participants. So there's research there on different sizes and different sector categories to use as a benchmark.
You guys do a great job of making information available to everyone to help them set their communication plans.
Thank you.
You really do. I just also want to add to that there is the opportunity to, with information that's provided, and Odie, you have to tell me because I don't remember where it is. You can look. So if your organization did participate in the 2022 Giving Challenge or even the 2020 Giving Challenge, you can go back and pull the information from the donations that came in. They actually tell you what time they came in at. And you can look to see what gaps in time you weren't getting donations during those 24 hours, and then you can even target maybe some special messages during those hours that would reach people during those downtimes in history. So, but I don't remember where you can pull that from.
Yes, it's in the GiveGab platform, and we can, Erica or I can put a chat into how to download that donation report from 2022. And then we'll also put in the chat the 2022 survey report with all the performance analysis and stuff.
So the information that the Giving Challenge and Community Foundation provides is pretty great. Okay, so step 4 is understanding your target audience. Best practice. So this is a best practice, so put a star if you're taking notes, is the more you can tailor your message to your audience, the more your message is going to resonate. In other words, if your audience, I just use a fake profile, like if your audience is a single mom with 3 kids and she's, working a full-time job and relying on your services for her childcare, the more you can tailor your message to that single mom that can talk about, our services can help you do this and this and this, and we can help relieve some of your stress every day. The more you can tailor your message to your audience, the more that message is going to resonate. We all know that we live in this world where we're getting bombarded with messages all the time. I think I read a statistic recently that on an average day, someone who's on Facebook will scroll the entire length of the Statue of Liberty while they're just scrolling social media. So the amount of messages that they're getting every day just on Facebook is pretty intense. And so that's why this section is so important, is understanding your target audience. And there's a primary target audience and there's a secondary target audience. Your primary target audience has a direct impact on determining the success or failure of your project or whatever it is you're working on. So some of your primary audience may be the people that you currently are serving in your projects and programs and services. They could be your volunteers. They could be your board of directors. Other primary, but it's the people who matter most to your organization is your primary audience, or the people who matter most to your goals. So it could be your primary audience are existing donors. Perhaps you want to put them in the primary audience category. Your secondary audience is the audience that has an indirect impact on determining the success or failure. And they may need consideration. Don't forget about these people. While they're not directly going to impact you, they're still incredibly important to recognize and not get lost. But understanding the difference between primary and secondary and categorizing your target audience can also tell you where you should focus your resources, because as we mentioned, we all know resources are always limited. Staff resources, time, and money are always limited. So understanding who you should be focusing your messages on is an important tactic. So ask yourself who matters most. And for nonprofits and organizations such as yours, it could be that you have some agency organization partners that are important to you. You may have a very strong board of directors, or some of you may have board of directors that are important stakeholders, current and past donors. Some of you may consider elected officials as part of your audience, county government or city government. Employees, volunteers, cannot stress that audience enough. Your employees and your volunteers are a great audience to focus your efforts on. These people give their time, their energy, they care, you already have their hearts. They're brand ambassadors for your organization, and it's certainly something that you should definitely focus your time on. Again, if you are a membership organization, don't forget to reach out to all of your members. Perhaps you are very tied to local businesses in the community, and there's some local business owners that may be considered stakeholders, but who matters most? Once you've identified who matters, then it kind of gets a little fun, because it goes back to that whole research, but understanding their demographics and their psychographics. Their demographics, where do they live, male or female, ages, their psychographics, their lifestyles, their interests. I had mentioned in research that the Pew Research Center always has information related to how people get their news. It's an easy Google search. How do generations get their news? You can certainly look at the latest on that to see, well, if they're in the baby boomer category, where are they getting their news? If your audience is millennials, where are they getting their news? That can help you a lot with determining channels that you want to use to be able to to be able to reach your audience. So again, here's another activity idea for you to go back and do. Jot down one of your target audiences, just one, for the 2024 Giving Challenge, and brainstorm the ways that they might get their news and information. What is the best way to reach them? It's just kind of a fun activity to do on audience. Melanie, I'll let you take it over.
Well, there is a question. Can the donor targets break into giving levels?
Absolutely. You can segment your audience however you feel is best for your organization. So that's a great point, is some of your higher level donors, maybe they should have different messaging than some of your one-time donors, and even your monthly donors. Some of you have a monthly donation program where they just every month are part of a monthly donation. Don't forget them. They are very important ambassadors too, and they might need to be segmented into their own segment for communications. So the more you can segment down your donors, your audience in total, the more you can then develop messages, which we're going to get to next. Melanie's going to talk about message development. The more you can create messages that are more to that audience, better chance you are of that message resonating and really making a difference.
And breaking those donors down into different giving levels may also help you with setting objectives too. You may have a certain group of donors that you want to try to increase the average of their donations by 5%. You may have a different group that you might hope to increase by 10%. And that would be based on, what their giving levels are. So that can help you with that too. Okay, so now you've determined who your audience is, who you're speaking to, and what you want to accomplish. Now you have to figure out what you want to say to them to make that happen. Key messages should support your goals and objectives, and they should identify the unique selling points of your organization. So what makes you different and why should people care about it? We all know that Giving Challenge is a wonderful thing, but it also means people who give in our community are going to be getting lots of messages from lots of different organizations during that time period. So you do want to stand out, and you want to make sure you are getting to your audience with a message that applies specifically and appeals to them. It should be clear and concise, and it should be written specifically for that target audience. So you need to understand what that target audience needs and is looking for and what motivates them. So key messages serve as the foundation for taglines. Key messages and taglines are not exactly the same thing. The taglines, these organizations, these are things that we're all familiar with because we hear them so often. Your key messages should speak to the essence of what your organization does, and it should differentiate you from your competitors. Part of that differentiation is your personality. So like in this example with I'm Loving It, McDonald's is really casual and friendly. BMW takes themselves a little more seriously with the ultimate driving machine. So you need to determine what the personality of your organization is, and that will help you set a tone for your messaging. And once you really understand that and come to work with it, it adds consistency to your marketing and communications. So once you have your key messages determined, by repeating them, I mean, not exactly the same way, but by carrying those key messages through in your different communications, it helps people understand what to expect from you. And they should also be short and memorable. So if your organization, let's say you're an organization that provides services to families, you might have key messages directed at parents, at children, and a different message for teachers or therapists. When you're trying to determine something like a tagline, you're going to have to determine who is really the key audience, the most important audience for your organization, and boil down the message that appeals to them. So first you figure out your key messages, and then from that, you can try to determine what your tagline might be. So the Giving Challenge has the Be the One tagline, and you'll see that throughout all of their communications. You can use this phrase in your communications too. It's really easy to work into your messaging. Be the one that makes a difference, be the one that gives. And you can use the hashtag Be the One. And there is incentive to do so when the judges are determining some of the post-campaign awards that are given out. There is consideration given to incorporation of the Be the One tagline in your campaign. So you can use that along with your own organization's taglines.
So before we go on, I just want to see if there's any other questions about messages, because key messages are really important. And once again, if you can pinpoint different key messages for each of your audiences, you're more likely to resonate. Are there any questions?
The key messaging is where the storytelling aspect comes in as well. So if you may want to speak like you're speaking to a friend, or you may want to have a more formal speech. It's really determined by the tone of your organization.
Someone did ask if the message is the same as a call to action to donate.
It can be. So a call to action can stand alone as a call to action. That's your donate now is your call to action. Your key messaging could be something like, make a difference in the lives of veterans, or your key message is a little different from your call to action, but the call to action should certainly support what your key message is.
And we're going to go on to step 6, and I will warn you now that step 6 is pretty hefty and heavy, but we're going to get through it. I really love the slide at the very beginning with the little boy and his eyes are wide and he's like, oh my goodness, because I feel this way about step 6. There's a lot here, but we're going to get into strategies and tactics, which is the next phase of creating your strategic plan. And included in your strategies and tactics is a consideration of your tools, creating a budget, and a timeline. So this is how to deliver your key messages to your target audience. So again, this is consideration. So you've identified your goals, you've got your measurable objectives, you've done your research, you've identified your audience, and you've written key messages for each audience. But now the question is, how should you attack? By land, sea, or air? What's the best way to deliver those messages? And that's where we get into strategies and tactics. And I love this quote because it makes strategies and tactics more visual. I think sometimes these words are interchanged, but strategy is a ladder leading to a goal. So if you can imagine, the strategy is the ladder and tactics are those steps that you take on the ladder. So strategy is how to reach your audience, right? It's the ladder. So you could decide to do paid advertising, from paid social ads to ads in our local media to Google ads. Paid advertising is certainly a strategy. Ambassador or influencer engagement. So getting some of your stronger ambassadors, your brand ambassadors, those who are frequent donors or volunteers, and doing some kind of activity to encourage engagement with them. Community outreach, so hosting tables at information fairs. Content creation and storytelling is a strategy. Again, that's a ladder. It's a little bit, we're all doing content and creation and storytelling, but this is part of the ladder. Drip marketing, which is almost like email marketing, where you're just dripping information to people. Media relations, working through the media to get your message out. Search engine optimization, social media, word of mouth marketing. These are all ideas and examples of strategies. And then once again, tactics are the ways in which you engage that strategy, the way it's your to-do list. So if your strategy is media relations, then one tactic may be to reach out to the Herald Tribune's Business Weekly. And the tool that you're going to use for that tactic is a press release. You're going to write a press release. Your tactic, reach out to the Herald Tribune's Business Weekly for your strategy, which is media relations. Another strategy might be public engagement or community outreach, right? So this is I don't know if this is happening between now and the Giving Challenge, but Northport hosts a newcomer day every quarter, and at least it was every quarter. And you could just host an information table at Northport Newcomer Day about your services and programs, again, to encourage public outreach or community outreach or public engagement. Strategy might be volunteer outreach. You want to reach out to volunteers. So you decide you're going to develop an electronic newsletter that is specifically going to go to your volunteers, and you're going to use Constant Contact for that or MailChimp for that. So your strategy is the overall ladder. Your tactic is your to-do list, and the tools are the tools that you use to be able to carry out those tactics and strategy. So social media is certainly, you could do a presentation all alone on just social media. In fact, you can take these same 7 steps to creating a strategic communications plan and use these same 7 steps and create a social media strategic plan, a communications plan just on social media alone. But I pulled the slide, we put this slide in there because we want to make sure that you're thinking about social media too. So one strategy is to utilize social media engagement to position your organization as the leader in its field, right? And so you might want to post once a week a link to an industry study about the services or programs that you offer on LinkedIn, which you know is a professional, a very professional audience. They're there with their professional hats on when they're scrolling through LinkedIn. So that's one way to do that. Another strategy might be to maximize the two-way communication of social media to engage the audience in dialogue. You want people to engage with you, to comment with you. So one idea is post once a week on Facebook a question to encourage more comments and engagement in the chat, in the comments below that post. You can utilize Facebook for that. So those are just some ideas of ways you can use social media, but this is an example really of how strategies and tactics and tools connect. So here's an activity idea right in the middle of this one. Using in the target audience. So let's say using a specific target audience that you identified in the last activity, write down a key message for that audience that Melanie had gone over on how to write a key message, and then create a strategy, a tactic, and a tool based on what you brainstormed. So I believe in that last activity we talked about, the idea was identify a target audience and then brainstorm ways that they get their news. And so then you may want to have a strategy that relates to that, a tactic that answers to that strategy, a to-do list item that would meet that strategy, and a tool you would use to carry out that tactic. And it is really important during this time when you're identifying strategies and tactics to create a budget and a timeline. We've talked a lot about how strategic communication plans are designed to make sure that you're doing a very targeted approach to your communications. You're not just trying this and trying this and trying this and trying this, which can sometimes cause a lot of resources. So you can use staff resources for everything. You can use a lot of time on everything, but you don't know if it was strategic or not. But if you are strategic, then you're spending less time on things that might not matter and really honed in on those SMART objectives and the measures that you are hoping to accomplish. Well, creating a budget that not only includes dollars, I think when we talk about budget, we really think about dollars, but also includes time and resources is important. So creating a budget that, yes, includes the printing costs and the production costs and the postage if you're doing direct mail, and any kind of professional service fees and subscriptions and supplies, but it also includes the number of volunteer hours and the number of staff hours and the staff costs that are going to take for each strategy and tactic and the actual dollars that would be spent, so that you have a real clear picture of the budget. And then a timeline, of course, I don't really have a slide pulling out timeline, but timeline is really identifying, okay, we are 6 weeks out, I'm making that number up, we might be around there or a little more out from the Giving Challenge. In the next 6 weeks, we're going to have accomplished, next week we're going to do this, next week we're going to do this, next week we're going to do this, and creating that timeline to make sure that you're doing everything you need to do in the time that you have to do it. So again, it's managing those resources. But having a timeline as part of your communications plan really, truly helps keep everyone in line, and it also helps make sure everyone knows what's going on and what's happening. So any questions related to strategies and tactics? Just that ladder, showing you that ladder again about strategies and tactics. Any questions?
We did have one, I think, related to social media. Someone asked in the LinkedIn example, how would you tie in the Giving Challenge part of the communication?
So social media offers an opportunity to really engage your audience, both the people that are already following you and then to gain new followers as well. LinkedIn is a professional social media channel. When studies have shown that when people are logged into LinkedIn, and also studies have shown people log into Facebook daily, but LinkedIn, they will maybe log in once a week, and that's normal. And when they are logged in, their frame of mind is really focused on professional development. They're really looking at how can I enrich myself, and then how can I help enrich others. And but it's really about professional development. And so understanding your audience's frame of mind, perhaps you do have an audience of professionals that you're hoping to reach, and understanding that frame of mind, and then creating content for them specifically on LinkedIn. I'm not sure that the same content that you would create on Facebook would be the same content that you would create on LinkedIn. Facebook, when people are on Facebook, they want to be almost entertained, and they don't have their work hats on, right? They're in their personal lives, and they're liking their friends' photos, and they're sharing their friends, and they're sharing funny things. And so it's a different dynamic of where people are when they're on LinkedIn versus Facebook. So creating content that's related to maybe the business of your organization, or and creating enrichment content. People are looking for to enrich themselves, maybe too, for LinkedIn. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that too, but I think LinkedIn is a great platform to be on. Okay.
There's another question. Someone asked, are there any statistics related to using Nextdoor to engage possible donors? I haven't heard of Nextdoor.
I don't have statistics for Nextdoor, although I would highly recommend Google searching it. And I do know that Nextdoor is a fantastic venue to reach neighbors. So if your services are really focused on a specific neighborhood, like, I'll just take an example, like Rosemary District, or the North Port Estates, or if you're really into a neighborhood and you really want to be engaged in a neighborhood, using Nextdoor to reach that neighborhood and those neighbors is a great way to, it's a great approach. That's a good strategy. But as far as data, I would probably turn to the internet for that to see what data is.
Yeah, I don't know any statistics around Nextdoor either, but I do think it could be a great platform for putting your messaging on, and best case scenario, you get engagement from community members talking about your organization. There could be some real lift from that.
Okay.
All right, evaluation. This is the fun part, I think. The hard work is done. The program has come to an end, although you will be monitoring all the way through. But this is your opportunity to look back at what you accomplished, and either celebrate or think about the lessons learned for the next time. But you set those really specific, measurable objectives. So now at the end, you can look and see what inroads you made toward meeting or exceeding your objectives. You can identify ways to improve. So this may be the time where you're looking at your key messaging and what worked and what didn't. If you sent, if you're able to see where your lifts were in your giving, and you can tie it to, we sent this email at this time and we saw a lift, then you can see what messaging is working. And that'll help you make recommendations for the future. So if you did things that you didn't see working, then those may need to be reevaluated for next time. But hopefully you'll come away with some really strong results. And ROI is important here. You're measuring against your objectives, but you're also looking at your overall return on investment. That's your ROI. And Erin talked about budgeting, and you really have to know what was invested into your communication efforts for this. So not just monetary investments, but staff time, volunteer time, all of that. So you can look at what you got out of it and was it a worthwhile investment of those resources. And all of that will serve as your research for your next phase or program. So when the 2026 Giving Challenge comes around, if this was your first one, then you'll have a much better basis next time for developing your goals and objectives around. Okay, so measurement is so important for evaluation. We talked about doing your research before your project started to establish your baseline. And we did talk about evaluating during the performance as well. So you need to be looking at how your performance is going all the way through. If you're halfway through the Giving Challenge and you're not halfway to your goal, then you may want to reevaluate some things. You may want to add in some personal phone calls. You may want to do some more posts. You may want to try some different ways of outreach. But you're gonna watch your donations coming in. You're gonna monitor your email open rates and click-through rates. If you sent one email with one message and it worked really well, and you sent another one that didn't work really well, then you want to look at those and apply that to your next one going out. And of course, you want to monitor your social media engagement and comments. Maybe there's an opportunity there to increase your engagement or get people talking or answer questions that might make a difference in your donation. And of course, after your project, after the Giving Challenge is completely done, you want to look at your results and you want to be able to recap this, both so you can share it with your key stakeholders, whether that's a boss or a board of directors or even your donors or whoever your key stakeholders are. You want to be able to share with them the results of what happened for you during the Giving Challenge.
So that brings us to our 7 steps. We've gone through them all. 7 steps to building a strategic communications plan. We talked about defining your goal. Goals are broad in nature. They should match your organization's mission and values, but it should be tied strategically to your communications and what your communications goal is. Step 2 is research, which helps you be more strategic. Step 3 is setting those SMART objectives that are measurable. Step 4 is identifying the target audience, who matters most. Step 5 is developing key messages specific to each of those target audiences. Step 6 is, again, how are you going to attack land, sea, or air? It's those strategies and tactics. The strategies is the ladder. The tactics is the steps that you take on that ladder. And then don't forget those tools, the tools that you need, the budget and the timeline. And then, of course, just what Melanie addressed is the evaluation. So those are our 7 steps to a communications plan. And again, I will say this again, that this is absolutely scalable. So if you're hosting a kickoff event for the Giving Challenge, you can take these 7 steps and just to promote the kickoff event. You can take these 7 steps and develop a communications plan holistically for the entire Giving Challenge, or you can actually take these 7 steps and do one even better and do a 3-year or 5-year strategic communications plan for your entire organization. So it's absolutely scalable, but it's these same 7 steps. So with that, we'll open it up to any other questions that people might have.
Thank you, Melanie and Erin. There is a question in the chat, just a general, what are click-through rates?
So when you do ads, when you run ads, they'll tell you how many people have clicked on that ad.
Also newsletters. So if you're using something like a Constant Contact or a MailChimp. If you're sending out newsletters, you'll get lots of different statistics on your newsletters. You can see how many people opened your email, and the click-through would be how many people clicked. If you had, a donate or go to the Giving Challenge or learn more, you can get how many people actually clicked on that link. And like Aaron was saying, the same applies to digital ads if you're running those, either social media or in the media.
And I do want to encourage if anyone has questions to either put them in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask on Zoom. Any questions? Or need some advice, thoughts, ideas for your communications? No? Well, if there aren't any, that's the end of the presentation. So you guys are welcome to have the gift of time and go back.
And you have our contact information there. So if any questions come up, you're welcome to reach out to us.
Yes, absolutely. Again, this training was recorded. We will send out the presentation slides, and once the recording is available to everyone who registered, so they will be available on demand for you to look at afterwards. All right.